She faked her death after killing our child, and what I found next broke me. My name is Thomas Reed, and I used to think I had a perfect life. I had a beautiful wife, Lauren, and a newborn son, Max. We lived in a modest home on the edge of a small town in Pennsylvania. It was quiet, peaceful, the kind of place where nothing really happens. Or so I thought. Max was born in early spring, a small, fragile boy with big blue eyes just like his mom's. But he had complications. Doctors told us he had underdeveloped lungs and a heart murmur. The nights were long, oxygen monitors beeping, Lauren pacing the floor, both of us barely sleeping. But despite it all, we were holding it together. Or maybe I was just blind. It was on a Tuesday morning, when I came home early from work with bagels and coffee, hoping to surprise Lauren. The house was too quiet. No crying. No white noise machine humming in Max's room. When I walked in, I dropped the bag. The crib was empty. Lauren was sitting on the floor, holding a blanket to her face. Her hands were trembling. When I asked where Max was, she looked up at me with red, lifeless eyes. "He's gone," she whispered. "He just stopped breathing." I froze. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. Just fell to my knees. My baby. My son. Gone. The paramedic said it was sudden infant death syndrome. No signs of struggle. Nothing unusual. Just death. Sudden and cruel. We buried Max 3 days later. Lauren was silent the whole time. She didn't cry. She didn't even hold my hand. That night she disappeared. No note. No call. Just gone. I reported her missing. Police found her car at cliffside an hour away, keys still in the ignition. Her shoes were placed neatly near the edge. They ruled it a suicide. But her body was never found. Friends told me to move on. Start fresh. But I couldn't. Something didn't sit right. She loved Max more than anything. Why wouldn't she even say goodbye to me? Months passed. I barely ate. I quit my job. I was obsessed with trying to understand what happened. And then, 6 months later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just one sentence, handwritten. You only buried one body. I stared at the letter for what felt like an hour. The handwriting was unmistakably Lauren's, curved, deliberate, almost artistic. I had memorized every detail of her writing during our years together. I even kept a birthday card she once left on the fridge. There was no doubt in my mind she was alive. But the sentence, "You only buried one body," shattered me. What did she mean? I tore through my house like a man possessed, searching for any other clues. Nothing. No envelope, no fingerprints, no indication of who delivered it. I drove straight to the cemetery, to Max's grave. I stood there for hours, unable to breathe, my thoughts spiraling into madness. Was my son not dead? Or worse, had I buried the wrong child? The next day, I went to the funeral home. I demanded to see the death certificate, autopsy report, anything they had. The manager looked uncomfortable, like he didn't want to tell me what he knew. We did as instructed. He finally said, "Your wife handled most of the arrangements. You weren't in shock." "I didn't even see the body," I whispered. "She said he was too small, too pale." He nodded. "That's what she told us to." I left and drove to the hospital next. Records were sealed. I had to fight tooth and nail, pretend I was considering suing, until someone finally gave me access. That's when I saw something that made my stomach drop. There was no autopsy. In fact, the hospital never officially declared Max dead. No coroner's signature. No medical examiner's conclusion. This one line in the discharge notes, "Infant not present at time of verification." Lauren had taken Max before the hospital could even examine him. I was shaking, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else. I called the police, reported everything. They opened the case again as a potential kidnapping. But without a body, without a crime scene, they said their hands were tied. I couldn't sleep that night. I searched Lauren's social media, old email accounts, any trace of her I could find. All of it had been wiped, vanished, like she never existed. Until I remembered the storage unit. Lauren had kept one for years. She said it was full of childhood junk, old furniture, things she didn't want to part with. I had the spare key tucked in a drawer with our mortgage papers. I drove there the next morning, heart pounding. The clerk barely looked up as I signed in and walked to the unit. When I opened it, the smell hit me first. Mold. Dirt. Something metallic. Inside were plastic bins, dozens of them. I ripped one open. Baby clothes. Max's clothes. Washed, folded, but never worn. In another bin, diapers unopened. Bottles. Formula. Toys still in the packaging. Then I saw the notebook. Thick, leather bound. I opened it and began to read. And that's when I realized Lauren had been planning this for months. She never meant to raise Max with me. She had been preparing to disappear with him. The notebook was meticulous, pages upon pages of lists, sketches, journal entries, even maps. Lauren had drawn out entire escape plans, with timelines, alternate identities, and names of small towns I'd never heard of. She had circled one word over and over. Freedom. I sat on the concrete floor of that storage unit for hours, flipping through the madness. One page haunted me more than the others. It was a crude sketch of a baby in a crib. Above it she had scrawled, "He doesn't belong in this world, not your world." I didn't understand. Had she joined some cult? Was she mentally ill? Why wouldn't she tell me? We were supposed to be a team. A family. I took photos of every page, then brought the entire notebook to the police. They took it seriously this time. The tone changed instantly. Suddenly, I wasn't just a grieving husband. They began asking me questions too. A detective named Evans pulled me into a private room. "You sure you didn't know about this?" he asked. I nodded, still numb. I didn't even know she had that notebook. He leaned back, tapping a pen on the desk. "There's something else," he said. "We ran her name again. Someone used her social security number at a women's shelter in Utah 3 months ago." My heart stopped. "She's alive?" "Looks like it, but she used a fake name Andrea Klein, said she was escaping domestic abuse." I stared at him in disbelief. "She told them I was abusing her." Evans nodded slowly. "We don't have proof, just an intake form, but that's enough to get her into a network of protected housing. These places are designed to make people vanish." "So where is she now?" "That's the problem. Once they enter that system, they get moved every 30 to 60 days, no trace." I felt like I was drowning. Everything I thought I knew about my wife was disintegrating in front of me. She planned a fake death, lied about our son, made me bury an empty coffin. And now she had vanished into a system that protected her from me. But I wasn't going to stop. I hired a private investigator. His name was Curtis Lang, a retired cop who specialized in missing persons. He didn't sugarcoat anything. If she's in the domestic abuse system, it's going to be tough, but people slip up. They call old friends, check email, use public Wi-Fi. If she's got the kid, she's got to see a doctor eventually, schools, pharmacies, somebody somewhere's going to see her. 2 weeks later, he called me. She's in Arizona, Prescott Valley, using the name Andrea Klein, and she's got the boy. I drove 12 hours straight, alone, no sleep, just running on pure rage. Curtis had found the address, some shitty little rental house on the edge of town. I waited outside for hours until I saw her. Lauren, holding Max's hand. He looked older, taller, healthier. He was alive. I stepped out of the car. My legs barely worked. She saw me and froze. Then she grabbed him and ran. I sprinted after them, heart punching through my ribs. My feet pounded the dry Arizona ground as I chased the woman I once called my wife and the child I had buried. "Lauren, stop!" I shouted. "Please just let me talk to him." She didn't stop. She darted around the side of the house, dragging my Max behind her. He was scared, confused, stumbling to keep up. I saw him look back at me. His face. His eyes. He was mine. I caught up near the fence. I grabbed her arm. She screamed like I was a stranger, like I was some monster off the street. Max began crying. "Get your hands off me," she shrieked. "Lauren, he's my son." I yelled, trying to hold it together. I thought he was dead. She twisted away from me, shielding Max with her body. Her eyes were wild. "You were going to ruin him," she said, panting. "You were going to turn him into you." "What the hell are you talking about?" She looked straight at me, no fear, just fury. "You didn't know how to love him. You only knew how to own him." I froze. What the hell did she mean? Every day you talked about rules, routines, feeding times, like he was a damn project, a checklist. I felt him slipping away under your control. He was a baby. I snapped. He needed structure. Care oxygen, Lauren, he could barely breathe. "You turned every moment into a schedule," she screamed. I was suffocating. He was suffocating. I stared at her stunned. She was shaking now, tears running down her face. Max was sobbing quietly, his arms wrapped around her leg. "He said he died," I whispered. I had to say that. That was the only way to keep him safe, from hospitals, from pills, from you. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was unhinged. Then I saw flashing lights. Police cars turning the corner. Curtis must have called them. I raised my hands and backed away slowly. The officers surrounded us, guns drawn, barking orders. Lauren dropped to her knees, arms around Max, whispering something in his ear. They cuffed her gently, took Max aside. I was kept separate, forced to explain everything while he cried across the street with a female officer trying to calm him. At the station, it all unraveled. Lauren had falsified Max's death using a stolen infant's ID from an online grief forum. She forged the funeral documents, convinced the hospital he had been transferred to another facility, then disappeared into the abuse survivor network by fabricating claims against me. She'd been off the grid for nearly a year, bouncing from shelter to shelter, avoiding school registration, even faking vaccine records. She was charged with kidnapping, fraud, obstruction, and more. Max was put into emergency foster care while they sorted custody. I was allowed one supervised visit. When I saw him again, he didn't recognize me. He clung to the social worker's hand, afraid, staring at me like I was the villain in someone else's story. And maybe I was. The room was sterile. Bright white walls. A plastic table. 2 chairs. 1 security camera. My palms were sweating as I sat down across from Max, now almost 4 years old. He looked smaller than I remembered. Fragile. Barded. "Hi, buddy," I said softly. He said nothing. The social worker MS. Diane, I think her name, was knelt beside him. "This is your daddy," she said with a smile. "Remember we talked about him?" Max looked at me, then looked away. Lauren had poisoned him against me. That much was clear. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the one thing I hoped would connect us, a tiny stuffed elephant Ellie. His favourite toy as a baby. I'd kept it all this time. "I think you used to sleep with this," I said, gently sliding it toward him. Max hesitated, then slowly reached out and took it. He held it to his chest like it was the only thing in the room that made sense. That broke me. The visit only lasted 20 minutes. I wasn't allowed to ask him questions about Lauren or anything traumatic. Just small talk. He barely spoke. Just nodded. Fidgeted. Played with Ellie. But when he left the room, he looked back at me only once. And smiled. A tiny, uncertain smile. That night, I sat in my car for hours outside the county building, just staring at the traffic. My mind was a hurricane of guilt, anger, heartbreak. I wanted her locked up forever, but part of me, the part that still remembered the woman I loved, wondered what she must have felt to justify doing this. The next week was court hearings. Lauren's lawyer tried everything: emotional manipulation, mental health evaluations, even blaming me for creating a toxic home. But the judge wasn't buying it. I was granted temporary full custody pending a psychological assessment and home inspection. Max was coming home, but it wasn't the home he remembered. His room was different. His crib gone. New sheets. Different toys. He wandered around the house like a stranger. I tried to comfort him, but he'd flinch when I reached for him. I wanted to scream. To cry. To undo everything. Then, one night, I found him hiding in the closet, clutching Ellie and whispering something. I knelt down beside him and listened. "She said you were going to make me go away too," he whispered. My heart shattered. "What?" I said. "She said when you get mad, you make people disappear." I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or collapse. "Buddy," I said gently, "I would never hurt you." He looked at me with those big blue eyes, wide and scared. "Promise?" "I promise." It took weeks. But eventually, the walls began to fall. He laughed once when I burned the pancakes. Hugged me when he had a nightmare. Asked me to read to him before bed. He was starting to come back. But then, late one night, my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. A video. I hesitated, then played it. The footage was grainy but clear enough. Lauren, in a padded cell, smiling, speaking directly to the camera. "I told you, Tommy, you only buried one body. You're not done yet." I watched the video 3 times, unable to move, unable to breathe. It wasn't the words that scared me most, it was the way she said them. Calm, cold, certain, as if this wasn't over. As if she still had control. I forwarded the video to the detective on the case, Evans. He called me 10 minutes later. "She doesn't have access to a phone," he said. "No internet, no visitors." The facility confirmed that. So either someone inside is helping her or she planned this before she even got caught. "So what does this mean?" I asked. "Is Max in danger?" Evans paused. "We don't think so, but we're going to keep patrols nearby, just in case." That didn't help me sleep any better. I started locking every door twice. Set up cameras. Slept with a baseball bat beside the bed. Every night, I'd lie awake, listening for sounds that weren't there. Waiting for shadows that didn't move. Wondering if her madness was contagious. Wondering if Max would ever be normal again. But he was healing. He started preschool. Made a friend named Leo. Learned to tie his shoes. He'd still ask about Lauren sometimes in vague, innocent ways. "Did Mommy go on vacation? Will Mommy call?" I never lied. I told him she was sick. That she needed help. That she loved him, but she did something very wrong. He accepted that for now. But the damage Lauren left behind seeped into everything. Some nights he'd scream in his sleep, clawing at the sheets. Other times he'd sit silently for hours, staring at the walls. And then, a few weeks later, I got another letter. No return address. One line. "You should have buried 2 bodies." I turned cold. My fingers trembled. I ran to Max's room. He was gone. For a moment, my heart stopped. The world spun. Then I saw the light under the bathroom door. I burst in. There he was, sitting on the toilet, playing with Ellie. "Daddy," he laughed. "You scared me." I collapsed onto the floor, tears pouring out of me like poison. I held him so tight he complained. The next morning, I installed steel locks. Trip sensors. Even hired a night got to sit outside in his car. Evans called a few days later with an update. The letter had no prints, but the handwriting was a perfect match to Lauren's. A new one. Not old stock, which meant she had someone sending them. Or worse, someone else believed in what she believed. She was in isolation now. The mental hospital had transferred her to a maximum security psychiatric facility. No communication. No contact. No way out. And still, I didn't feel safe. Not really. Sometimes I'll catch Max staring at me, eyes a little too still, a little too distant. And once, just once, I heard him whisper to Ellie, "Mommy said he'll disappear too, just like the last one." I'm not sure who he meant. But I know one thing for certain. The story isn't over. Not yet.